Okay. We are starting the podcast. And this is actually take 2 when we never do this. But we were not on the right topic and we were not giving the right energy. But we are ready to have a good time now. We've had a good Tuesday. We're drinking at 5 o'clock.
We haven't announced who we are.
Oh, I'm Katerina.
And I'm Tori.
And I'm Betsy.
I feel like you're going to lead the podcast today.
Oh, no, I'm not.
Tori's on the right energy.
But I was like, we did the introduction on the last one and we did it on this one.
We have been having a great Tuesday. We went to Enzo Media Firm earlier today, filmed for Reels for the Custom Life Realty Group Instagram page with the team. That was awesome. We went and got lunch. We went and got nails done. It took 27 hours. And now...
It's the next day now.
Now it's Wednesday.
We've all slept here and we're starting over.
We are having a little wine, and it's after 5 o'clock on a Tuesday. So we're in good spirits. We had a very false start, but we are restarting the recording. We're going to talk about dating. We're going to talk about a fun topic. Yeah. Betsy went on her first date last night in a very, very, very long time, and I'm really proud of her.
Okay, it wasn't that long.
No, it was.
Here's the thing.
It was.
like,
I'm
I
single, and Kat thinks I should be out there dating. Every other night. Every other night she thinks I should be on a date.
Absolutely.
Who says a girl can't just love herself, you know?
Tell me.
And then Tori's over here going, well, you're single, but you're not living your best life. If you're not out there, out there on dates. Girls, you can live your best life single without me. That's the point. That's the enjoyment.
Like, I just don't agree with the topic of, like, date yourself. Like, I just, like, no.
Tori's like, I met her.
I met her.
I do think there could be value in dating yourself, and I do think there can be value in not dating. But I think that you've been doing that for a minute, and I think that you would like to meet a nice person, and you can't if you meet no one. Okay?
The thing is, I'm all or nothing. So when I was previously dating, I was, well, when I was all, I was really a lot. Like, it's not to say, I would show up to dates, like, not even really, I didn't care who it was with kind of a thing, because...
And that's
I was there for the fun of it. You know what I mean? I wasn't really taking like the dating aspect of it seriously.
Which you also aren't going to end up with a nice guy if you're doing that.
Yes, you will not. Exactly. So then I went through a period where I really wasn't going out at all. And so then last night I had to do it casually. Like normally. Like I actually had to like text Kat.
Mostly sober.
No.
I mean, you had to go there sober.
You were
okay, but sober to me, because I was sober for 6 months, is different than just saying, like, I took a shot last night prior to going, and then I had 2 margaritas. I was not sober. And I don't like using that word because I feel like anyone who's like, you know what I mean? Fair. If you're sober, like, you're really trying, like...
You weren't trash. You didn't
I was completely coherent, and I was, like, aware of what I was drinking, and I did not just continue to drink. I made boundaries for myself, and I was like, we're not going to keep going out, which he wanted to keep going out. Which, honestly, I did too, but I texted Kat, and I was like, what should I do in the bathroom? He wants to go out. What do we do?
And I, thank goodness, picked up my phone at the right moment, because it took me like 5 minutes to get back to my phone, because I was putting my kids down to sleep, and I saw it, and I was like, oh, no.
And I had been stalling. I'm like, I don't know. What do you think? I don't know.
And I texted her, I was like, no, do not do it. Do not.
That's good.
And she did the right thing.
And I went home.
And just to be clear, I have no judgment, and I'm not saying that you can never take a date past going to dinner and like going out afterwards. That's not what I'm saying. But Betsy and I especially have been trying to hold each other accountable with making healthy decisions and like not getting carried away with any hooligan behavior. And I think that if you want to
I don't know if we're the right people to hold each other accountable for that.
I think
in a
way we are, because we get it.
Okay.
Like I get it and you get it.
True.
So if one of us is like, oh, I'm thinking about engaging in this behavior that might not be healthy, the other person is like, I've been there, I get it. You don't need to do that. Thank you, Salem. And like, and we can, so like something I could say to you is like, if you wanna take it past dinner on the next date, like if you want to go out, like plan for it. Yeah. But like one thing that we've talked about with dating is that if your intention in your mind, if you know when you're like totally sober during the day on a Wednesday morning, when I go on a date with this guy, I really should just go to dinner with him, see how it goes, and then see how he follows up, then don't change your mind about it in the moment at dinner.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like if your intention before the date was a certain way, stick to that, because in the moment you're like, oh, but we could have a lot of fun. And it's like, but what you knew to be the healthy decision ahead of time, when you weren't in the moment enjoying it too much, that's kind of where we need to stick with it.
Yeah. Don't go based off your feelings, go based off your plan.
Right.
Which is what I did with drinking too. I only had 2 drinks.
Right, which was great.
Yeah.
All within moderation.
Which I think is another good thing to plan ahead of time, because I think with anyone, especially like for me, I think dating's so nerve-wracking. So if I can focus on anything but the person in front of me, I'm gonna do that. And I feel like alcohol naturally loosens you up. It's fun. And so it's like, if you can make that your thing, it can distract from the date. So don't do that. Like, have yourself, if you're like that, at least
have a limit.
Yeah, have a limit.
Set your intentions ahead of time. I'm not going to have more than 2 drinks. I'm not going to go out with him after the dinner. It's going to be a dinner, 2 drinks, have a good time, and then say goodbye. And even if it's hard, and then you can have a friend that you text who's like, get in your car, go home. And
the date will respect you more if you have your own schedule in place. You've set boundaries ahead of time. They don't typically, and even for us too, like, we don't want someone who everything's available. Like, we want a little bit of a game. Yeah. They want a little bit of a game.
Which I will say, I also don't condone when people like, men respect you more if you hold it. Like, shut up. I don't.
No, that's not what I don't.
I don't want to. I know that's not what you're saying. I want to be clear with listeners that we're not saying, if you're doing something that also the man engaged in, if he loses respect for you for that, he's a POS. What she's saying is, like, it makes sense to draw boundaries in the beginning and stick to those, and that's healthy. You don't need to be like putting 100% of everything out there and like going crazy on the first date, when it's like, maybe we should just get to know you a little bit.
Now, what do you do? This is just a question, a hypothetical. You're at dinner, you're having a great time, you're talking for hours, everything's coming natural, the drinks are flowing. Do you still have a cutoff? Like, what's your advice on that?
I think yes. If your intention going into the date,
it's
absolutely.
10 o'clock, I have to go home. Which, by the way, I do want to say this date last night, because I was like, well, he's like, what do you have to do? I was like, I have to go home and do X, Y, Z. He's like, you're not going to do that. I'm like, I know I'm not going to do that, to be honest. But still, I stuck to it. I'm like, I got to go. Like,
good job.
So he really did pressure me. Yeah.
And I don't like that.
Well, no, we've already,
Yeah.
It was a fun time, but it wasn't like forever.
He was a great person to re-enter the dating pool with, because he was
Thank
fun
you.
and he really liked you.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, I'm going to say
Which
that
is
too.
great, complimentary.
Sometimes especially when you're getting back into the dating world, it can be nerve-wracking and really hard. Just go on a date with a guy who seems nice enough, who's into you, and just go on a date to, like, I don't think you're being crappy. You are giving him a shot, but even if you're like, he's probably not my soulmate, sometimes you just need to go on a date and, like, break the ice. Okay, I did it. I felt good. Everything was fun. You show yourself, I've got this. I'm good. And then it, like, opens you up to go on dates with people that you actually, like, feel a little bit more nervous about. Even though dates can always be nerve-wracking.
I was about to say, I think it'll always be nerve-wracking, but yes, I do agree.
But it helps, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you feel a little
like,
bit
you're
better
like, okay,
about
I've done
it
this
now.
before, I can do it
You're
again.
like, oh, that wasn't so bad.
You even get, like, an idea of, like, questions that y'all talked about, like, things that, like, you might want to know about this person that you didn't think about prior. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, in your head.
I think, so to go back to what you said, I think when it comes to dating, you set your boundaries of what you're going to do or not do ahead of time, and you just stick to them. So, like if you want to spend all afternoon and evening with someone, like, decide that ahead of time, or you need to decide ahead of time, I'm only going to spend 3 hours with this person, and then cut it off. Because you also probably need time afterward to digest the time together and what was said. And then also, I think it's very important to see how somebody follows up on that date and follows up for the next one. Like,
were they feeling the same thing that you were?
Yes.
And if you guys were really hitting it off and you're like, oh, I didn't want to end it because, we were just having such a good conversation, blah, blah, like, you guys will both anticipate the next date even more.
Mm-hmm. And is he going to put in the effort to schedule and lock down that next date? Because honestly, if you hit it off with somebody and they're fantastic, but then he doesn't put in the effort, doesn't follow through for the next date, forget it.
Right. He wasn't the one.
That's not,
That might be his MO.
Exactly. So
He or she.
I think that you get to learn a lot about somebody by how they approach scheduling the subsequent dates, and it's not as helpful when you just like have no sort of boundaries, or like, okay, there's a date, let's see how they follow up. And then also, like, do they affirm you guys getting to know each other better? Like, for example, like texting something nice to you afterwards about like having a good time, or like texting you the next morning, versus like you don't hear from them at all. It's like, okay, so you're just showing me that you're not a person who puts in effort or is gonna like check in with me. Right. And like, maybe there are women out there that like that. They're like, okay, leave me alone always. But some of us would like to see some effort.
It kind of like rules out some of those. If you're looking for certain things ahead of time, you can see a small example of that prior to, we got locked into a relationship and I didn't realize XYZ about them because we spent, so much time together that I didn't see what they were like apart or whatever it is. It kind of requires you to learn those things.
Which, I mean, in my life, I'm a mother, so boundaries are like a natural part of my life. I think it's probably trickier for someone like you who doesn't have kids, because if you wanted to, I mean, you could throw all your free time at it,
right? Which
and
is
it could
dangerous,
be ridiculous.
Yeah. I think too, one thing that you encouraged me to do was making a list of what I was looking for, because then it gave me like, okay, does this person have this quality that I'm looking for? Because it's easy in the moment, and we should go on what you were saying yesterday morning, it's easy in the moment to enjoy the person's presence. Either they make you feel good, you're having fun, whatever it is, but they still might not have the qualities that you're looking for long term. And I'm looking for something long term, so that's what I'm speaking to. If you're not, this doesn't apply to you as much. Yeah, exactly. Totally fine. Doesn't apply to you as much. I've been there. And then in that case, go get drunk, have fun.
But if you have a criteria,
if you
want something that's
list,
real, there should be a list.
And then you put the effort in writing it down enough.
Yes, and if someone can, and if you send it to that person or discuss it point for point with that person, and they don't meet one, then you know that you looked for that, and if they don't meet it, they might not work. Like, they probably won't work. If that is something you have to have, they won't work. And up front, even if they're cute, whatever they make you feel, walk away. If that's something you know you need, walk away. Yeah, because it's not going to serve you long term, and you yourself are not going to be able to give up on that if that's so important to you.
I think that people get scared to make a list of criteria because they feel like, well, what if I'm ruling someone out who could be great? If they're so great for you, they would meet the criteria.
Yeah, that's the point. Yeah.
Also, I had a cool conversation with a single girlfriend of mine. I sent her my list. So, by the way, I think that you also, it's kind of manifesting, right? You make your list. This is what I want. And make it harsh. Like, be real. Be very real and very vulnerable in your list. These are things that are important to me. And then when I sent it to her, she had a very good question. She was like, are all of these necessities, can you bend on any of these? And I told her like 2, where I was like, I could bend a little bit on this. This is really what I'm looking for. I'm just like wording it this way on the list because men are the way that men are, and I feel like this needs to be worded this way. So like, I had like 2 on there that I was like, I'm willing to bend a little on these, but these other ones are non-negotiable. I'm serious. It's not like, if you do not meet it, it's not happening, period. And I am not afraid of cutting someone out who doesn't meet those criteria, because
it would never last anyway. You'd have to cut them out eventually.
And then it's just going to be worse. Because now I'm attached to you and I'm cutting you out because you were never going to be able to meet that point. And I love that you also made a list, and I think there's so much power in having the list.
And both of us have gotten the best feedback from it. I've gotten great feedback. Every single person. Wow, love a woman who knows what she wants.
It's either they don't respond to the list. Oh,
yeah, if they don't respond to you, then that's great, because they don't want to put in that kind of effort. They're not looking for what you're looking for, and that's fine. It either intimidates them or
and if they're scared by
much,
it,
or maybe they don't.
You're weeding them out without having to like put time investment into someone who's going to be weeded out anyway.
Yep.
I have a question for Tori. How much, so Tori's been in a relationship for almost a decade, okay? She's wifed up. They're not married, they're not engaged. She is wifed up at the moment. So do you feel like your list of criteria has changed a lot from what you've experienced being in a long-term relationship?
Oh, yeah, for sure. So, my boyfriend and I were together in high school. So, like, we grew up into adults, like, with each other. So, obviously...
Into homeowning,
yeah,
grown-ass
I mean, there's
people.
just, we went through high school, and then I went to college, and he did trade school. And, I mean, yeah, it definitely changes, especially, like, when you get older. When you, like, especially, I guess when you reach a certain age, like 25 is like, we were talking about this today, I was like, this is the number where, like, I really feel like I'm, like, growing up. Like, yes, like 20, 21, like, that's where you're kind of, but 25 is like, okay, like, you've been here for a while, you've been,
Start to figure it out.
right, you're starting to figure it out, and I feel like it's such a weird season because your friends are in a weird, like, it's just a weird age where, like, some people are getting married and some people are single and some people are having babies, and, like, this age is, like, a weird spot. Mm-hmm. But it helps you kind of navigate your own relationship. Even like me, like, I've been in my relationship for a long time now, but it's changing based on watching my friends go through theirs, or it not working out, or like them making it and getting married and having babies. Like, that filters your relationship as well.
It like changes like what I want here and what I'm gonna need to stay.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I like that. I feel like you talking about age, I feel like, so I'm gonna turn 31 in June. Holy moly.
Yeah.
And I feel like for me, I didn't have like the most typical 20s. Like
you didn't.
I like buckled down, worked my ass off way too much. And it's paid off, but it was a lot. And had babies and, got divorced and the whole thing. But I think that in a way, approaching 30, the last few years have been traumatic, but also I have like stuck through with therapy and self-development, and the last year especially done a lot of healing and growing as a person. So I feel like I'm entering my 30s as an individual who so much better knows what I want and how I want it, and like I feel so much more sure of myself and the decisions that I'm making, and like even when it's hard, being able to be like, but I'm not compromising on this and I don't have to. And I think sometimes we're told, or we feel like we do need to compromise, or we do that should thing, like I should be good.
It's hard to, if you haven't like you've lived a little bit, you've had a whole lot of life in those 10
going
years
through a really hard time,
and watching, like, even for me, like watching somebody go through like a divorce and like dating again, and like you having a criteria and a list, like it helps me like figure out what we need to work on, or what
you need to look out for,
what I need to look out for, or like questions that you should ask your spouse, like, because we're not married yet and we're not engaged yet, and like obviously like we've talked about it and it's on the table, but like through Kat's experience, I have had questions to ask my spouse where like, this is like an ultimatum for me, or this is what I'm looking for in a husband or in a boyfriend, or like whatever place you're at in your life, you can do that.
Yeah.
Whether you're in a relationship or you're single.
That's very true. Just because you're in a relationship doesn't mean you shouldn't have a list.
Right.
And be comparing.
And that it evolves as well.
Yes, and encourage your. You can probably hear the leaf blower in the background. Maybe, yeah. And Lola's on the ground growling. She's like, there's a leaf blower.
It's always something here.
It's never ending.
I've always heard too that in your 30s you just do not care. And let me tell you, I can't wait, because in my 20s I still feel like I do not care, but I do have a level of like needing to please others that I just want to completely go away. I know it's hard to believe.
No,
because,
I know.
But do you know what I mean? Like, I can't truly. I don't feel like I'm truly myself, and like, I don't even know how to get there.
No,
I would have to do something crazy, and I feel like I've done a lot.
I think maybe maybe it's actually your 40s that you truly feel that
What?
way. Because, okay, I have bad news. So here's the thing. I am
You're
very...
not deep enough in your 30s to answer
No, this
that
is
yet.
what I'm going to say.
No,
35.
I do think
30,
I've
yeah,
hit a
30.
point where I'm like, I
You're
don't
too young,
care what
30.
people think, and I don't care very much at all. And I don't care.
That's a personality trait of yours, though. I
Yeah,
don't feel
that
like
is
that's
also
your
just
age.
who I am as a person.
Let me point that out.
Point taken. But also oh my gosh, where was I going with that? So I don't care very much what people think, and I do feel very sure about what I want and what I'm going to go after, and that I will not compromise. But I would say the one element that I still have that hopefully, which I think is just, I think it's a symptom of needing to do more healing, is I still feel like there's fear inside of me that not that it should not be there. It's like natural for it to be there, but I feel like there's there's
But
fear.
I feel like that's not through age, just through experiences.
No, I think you have to do healing. Like, my experiences gave me this fear,
Yeah.
and I need to do more healing
Okay.
so that I can. And it's not to acknowledge that painful things can happen is a good thing. That's realistic. Like, we don't need to be living in some fairy tale land where everything's going to go great, because I'm here to tell you that's not where we're
And that's
living.
like in any scenario of ours.
Yeah,
Or
in
any
any
yours,
I'm
like
so
literally
far out of
every
reality,
season.
we are
Reality will come back to you.
We are
like,
all
trust
susceptible
me.
to pain, okay?
Yeah.
And acknowledging that is just reality. But I think, and I'm trying very, very hard not to live and make decisions based on fear, because I've always been a person that says, like, just because something being hard or something making you afraid is not a reason not to do it. That's not a good reason to stay away from something. So, but I do still have like an element there, and I think it just means that I have more healing to do.
I think so. Because I think some of your fears are, I would say, relationship based. Is that true?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I
And
think
that's normal. You had a divorce, what, a year and a half ago?
we're coming up
It's
on.
coming up on 2 years.
And so.
I think, oh gosh, I just said I think 10 times. So I
You're like,
I don't want to.
welcome to the podcast, Katerina.
Wow,
I don't want to
know.
tie it
I'm
all
thinking-
to that, but I also don't want to.
Thank you, Betsy.
No, I think thanks a lot. No,
We did have to end the earlier episode, and after we ended it, I was like, Kat, why did you ask me that? And she's like, what?
What are you
So,
talking
I've been there.
Okay, here's what I'll say.
I love it.
Damn it. Okay, back it up.
Back to you,
What was
Kat.
the question?
I
We're
said
going to talk about your fear.
that you said a lot of it has to do with healing, and I said I think
Past experience.
any of your fear or most
Okay,
of your
here's the
probably has to do
thing.
with
I used to have a very, very hard time being vulnerable, even with my best friends, like being truly, deeply vulnerable and honest about the way I was feeling, because I did not want to admit that I could be hurt. I did not want to make it a possibility to be hurt. And when you are super honest and bare your soul,
And that's something me and you both struggle with and
Yes.
hold each other accountable
Do
for
y'all feel
like,
weak
all the time.
if you show that?
yes,
Weakness?
you feel that way.
Oh, yeah.
I see that in you too.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
when you show
I would rather suck it up than
your deepest, truest feelings and how something's affecting you, it opens you up and you're vulnerable to being hurt or embarrassed, or like, I thought something could be possible and it wasn't, or whatever, and it does feel weak. And I've done a lot of work over the past few years with my inner circle, being better about being really honest and really vulnerable. And because the reality is, if those are your people, they're just there for you.
Want to show up for you,
and you guys are showing up for me, and so it's okay for me to admit that somebody has hurt me or that I was pained by something. It doesn't make me weak. It makes me human, and I am human, and it is okay that I can be hurt. You know,
And you're able to go through that at the time.
Right, and then you can
And be able to
process
move
it when
on.
you admit
Yes.
it. If you admit it and you process it and you talk about it and you work through it, then you're not like letting this wound fester down deep inside of you. So I've been working a lot on that, and I think I've gotten better at it. but there's still elements of that there. And I think what really remains too is this fear when
and
it
sorry,
no, go
not to
ahead.
stop you there, but sometimes you think that you've processed something
Yeah.
and it comes up again.
And you're like, that hurt more than I
and
thought.
you're like, why am I so upset about this little thing or this, like I can't put it away? And it's like, oh,
I
wait,
wasn't
that
done
was,
processing
yes,
that.
like sometimes we think we're done processing something.
We're not.
And then it comes back and bites us again, and we're like, wait,
Like, well,
this
that's-
feels familiar.
That
like,
still stings.
and then it's like, also like, why are we following into the same routine, or we're picking the same characteristics of that person?
We're repeating a pattern
exactly,
that
it's a
already
pattern.
hurt us because our subconscious is trying to recreate the situation with a better outcome, because our subconscious believes that if we can do that, then it will heal our wounds. And really, we just need to bear our wounds to the open air and process them so that we can move on in a healthy way. So I think that when it comes to romantic relationships, that's probably where it still sits with me the worst. Is like, now I have my inner circle where I do feel very safe, and I feel like I can bare my soul to these people without judgment or without fear of them
And
being.
it's interesting too. I mean, I know we're talking about relationships, but like you do that a lot through relationships, and I do that with my relationship, but I do that more with my friendships. Where I'm like
bearing your soul. And your
where I'm
words.
like, oh, this person's like figuring me out, or not. Like, I mean, I had a hard time with that with you. It was like I spent so much time with this person.
You didn't think she was gonna figure you
And
out.
I'm like,
I'm gonna
she's
get in
digging.
there.
Like,
I'm
I
gonna
don't
get in there.
But I mean, and it's different for different people. Like for me, you know, the things that my boyfriend and I do, or that's not okay, or that's not healthy. Like I didn't even realize that was wrong, or like there was something that we
That it
needed to work
to be
on
addressed.
until it was like addressed from somebody else, or like a friend of mine did the same thing, or it just
Well, Tori has been here all day, every day for a minute now, and I think you have lived very closely to things that have happened in my life and the choices that I've made, and lived like vicariously.
seeing the patterns.
Right, and it makes you question the patterns in your own life and what you're accepting or what you're doing. And in romantic relationships, it is a different dynamic than platonic relationships, because something really horrendous would have to happen and would not happen. Like, I'm going to love these girls forever, and I can say that with no fear. I'm going to love these women forever till I die, and I have no fear of one day someone being like, you thought you would love them forever. That's
You
hilarious.
trust me that much? That's
I
sweet.
do.
We have been through a lot.
Yeah, we have been through some stuff, and I think, like, I even know that we could disappoint
If you stuck around
each
through
other.
New Orleans phase, we're here forever,
Then
baby.
we're here
Welcome for the
Ever. We're booed up now, and I feel like we could even go through phases of like being disappointed in each other, and it wouldn't change the fact that we're gonna love
Or
each
like
other
that's
forever.
not working for you forever.
Yeah, or
it-
like, yeah,
the
not being
dynamic
here every
could
day.
change.
Yeah.
and we would still love each other.
But it's hard to say that about somebody you could potentially think about being in a relationship with. Like that, like exactly,
different.
you're shutting it down. Like that is something.
That's
Exactly what we're talking about.
it is harder, I think, in
is.
romantic
hard to
relationships for
swallow.
some people to be vulnerable or like work past the fear or like show those inner, like their soft underbelly, because they can wound you so deeply.
We're
and there's
scared
a
of
higher
rejection.
chance. Yeah, we're scared of rejection. There's a higher chance
disappointment.
that they're going to wound you. And
Yeah.
if you start thinking that things are going to be great and you start revealing your underbelly, that's when things can turn on you. And when you've had experience in the past where that's how it's gone over and over again, you tend to be like caught expecting that from people, even though that's not necessarily healthy, because like not every person you come across in life is going to be crappy unless you keep picking crappy people.
Well, sometimes too, if you're used to that and someone treats you right, you can sabotage it because you're
Absolutely, you're terrified
used
of
to
that.
that. Yeah, you're used to that feeling of disappointment, and you might feel like, why hasn't it happened yet? And you start, without knowing, trying to
Oh, that's a
sabotage
great
it.
point. Sabotaging and dating. Oh, we all have. Anyone who's done any kind of dating has probably done it.
I used to put up such a front. Like, I wanted to play a game. I wanted to be a player, like, all my life. But I did not want to open up. And I just now started being vulnerable to the point that I'm like, okay, if I do want the things that I want, which is to get married, grow a family, I do need someone to love me unconditionally, because they're going to watch something come out of my vagina one day. But, you know, anyway.
I think it goes...
Even without that, like, I realized, like, even in my last relationship, I guess more of what love was that I never had experienced before. And I think that you do have to be vulnerable too.
I think sometimes when you experience certain things in romantic relationships, it helps you realize or come to terms with what you want the most. Because most likely you want to be with that person, you enjoy them, but then you realize, like, there's things that they're not going to give you. And you have to come to terms with the vulnerable part of you that says, this is what I really want the most, though. And you have to accept that if you're ever going to get close to having it.
And that's a hard part in a relationship too, because you can love somebody unconditionally, but what you want the most could be happiness, and that doesn't exist in the world.
What you want the most might be things that they cannot give you.
Exactly. And like, you
not
can
even
love
that they don't want
person,
to,
you can
but they
warn
can't.
them, and they might want to, but they might not be capable of it. Like,
and I think with dating too, something like as a red flag up front, which I experienced this recently, is if someone says, like, I want to do this, but I don't want to get hurt, they might need to do some healing prior to being able to enter a serious relationship. Because anytime you start to open yourself up to someone or date someone, you and that person can't promise that we're never going to hurt each other.
You are going to hurt each other.
That's not something that you can promise up front. And if someone's asking you to promise that, I think there are people out there who will ask you to, you know, well, I want this, but I need to know I'll never get hurt. You can't promise that. You're never going to put someone else before yourself. I hope you wouldn't.
Well, it's like, even so, I mean, relationships that, like, it's one of two things. You're either together or you break up. Right. That's going to be painful. And then if you stay together long enough, there are going to be things that you do most likely that are going to hurt that person. And you're either breaking up or you're working through it. But it's like, none of us are perfect. And I totally agree. You have to enter romantic relationships with the expectation that this person could hurt me. And to put a Buddhist spin on it, and I do love this about Buddhism, it is okay to be hurt, and it sucks, and it's terrible, and we want to put up armor and walls, and you can never. But the really good stuff is in those vulnerable, deep parts of it, and so you have to make yourself vulnerable to being hurt and recognize that it is possible that this person is going to deeply and terribly hurt me, but I am capable of healing, and I can live in that hurt for a moment, and I will be okay, and I will move on if that happens.
Now, we're not saying if there's red flags up front or that they don't meet your criteria that go ahead,
or
it'll be worth it.
Terrible.
Yeah, go ahead, it'll be worth it. You know, you might get hurt. Like, no, if you know that you're probably going to get hurt, not a good idea. But if you're afraid to open up to someone because you're scared of getting hurt, don't be, because you'll never experience true, passionate love, deep connection without opening up and accepting that it could potentially not work one day.
And Kat, I want you to touch on, like, you can mourn somebody and still go dating again. Like, I feel like that should be talked about too.
That's a great
Where, like,
point.
yeah, you could be scared of, or you could be hurt by somebody, but it's not okay to completely, like, close it off, shut it down, shut the door.
Not all guys are bad because someone hurt you.
Yeah, and
or
it's
even
okay.
because multiple people hurt you. Like, there are still good people out there, and don't think that you're lost.
It's okay to mourn something and also, like,
move on. Yeah, no, that is a great point, because I think we tend to get caught up in the things that just happen.
Or, like, it's too soon.
And the people that were just there.
We haven't mourned it enough, or there's not enough, we haven't had enough time. Like, it doesn't have to be that way.
So, like, face your stuff. Like, don't shove it down. You face your stuff, and you let yourself be upset, and you admit, like, this made me sad. I'm sad. This didn't go the most ideal way that I would have liked it to go. But you're right. It's not a healthy way to process your grief, to just shut down, box everything and everyone out, it's important to take steps to
If you do it
re-enter.
for too long, too,
You get
deprive
stuck.
yourself of it.
Yeah.
Like you just literally
and
just
then you're not open to any new good things.
If you sit in it too long.
You need to recognize the pain, recognize the hurt, but take the steps to re-enter the new season of your life. So instead of you process the season that just happened, we recognize it, we can talk about it, think about it, but also we need to look at this new season and take the steps to in a healthy way, enter that new season. I'm just gonna do that so it's not vibrating next to the microphone.
Sorry.
But to enter the new season with intentionality. And I think like I did a lot of this with Betsy and Tori in a season change where I was like, this is how I'm thinking of approaching this new season, doing it in a way where I'm not using unhealthy coping mechanisms, and like doing it in a way where it's like, it's really hard, but one step at a time. And this is what I want, and manifesting and being very intentional. And this made me think of this. One time my therapist said to me, you don't want to focus so much on the things that you don't want. Like we tend to be like, I don't want this and I don't want that. And like, somebody better not do this to me. And she's like, when you focus on those things, that's exactly what you're going to end up with.
And something you had to pull yourself out of, and you had to let other people pull yourself out of, is like your season's hard right now. So there was a point where it was like, you're like, I can't do this.
This is impossible.
Is too hard. This feels impossible. Like I gotta step away, and like we'll come back to it later. And like you can't do that, because when will you come back to it? When is there a season? When is there a promised season in your life
that won't be hard,
where it's not going to be hard? You have no idea when that's going to happen.
I would encourage people to open up to your closest people, your loved ones, the people who are there for you, about your fears about the new season that you're entering. Because I would say with these two people sitting here on this couch with me, when the most recent time that this happened, that there was a season shift that made me afraid and made me feel like I just don't even know how this is possible. No, I mean, that's what we're doing apparently on this podcast. This episode's going to be titled "Putting Katerina on Blast and Making Her Feel Uncomfortable."
It's worth
To be fair,
about.
I still am like wondering like what. So
okay, so Betsy's like, "What are we talking about?"
Tori, I have a general idea. I do know exactly what I'm
Sorry, Betsy.
Don't get me wrong.
I will say, I want to point out two good things about these people. Is I do feel like I could be very vulnerable and honest with them about the things I was afraid of. And like if I was having a semi meltdown about something and I could tell Tori, Tori was there to be like, you are doing the right thing. This is what is best. It will be okay.
But I'm also,
you're a badass. You've
it's
got
like,
this.
yes, it is hard.
And it is okay to recognize, like, it is hard. It is doable. We can do hard things. And I want to say about Betsy, like, this is something about Betsy that I think makes her such a valuable friend, is when I was looking at a season change, Betsy has this really great intuition for recognizing what your fear might be and what the hard points might be, and offering a real solution to those things. And Betsy had said to me, like, I've got you when this happens. Like, when you need help, this is gonna happen. You're afraid of this happening, and when this happens, I am here for you, and has been here for me in such a real, tangible way. And I think if you are not vulnerable and real and honest with your people and the people that you want to be close with, they can't show up for you like that.
Yeah, that's true.
And they want to show up for you. They don't know how if you don't tell them.
And I'm not saying that you're always going to tell people what you're struggling with and they're going to show up, because I've also been in seasons like that where no one came. Right. No one's coming. You're not getting help. And then you learn
who your people
are.
And
then you're like, I might need some people.
Right. I'm going to go find some people that really do care.
I have nobody. Yeah.
I've been pouring into the wrong people. Yeah. And now I know.
And if you're in a season where you look around and you go, I needed help and no one freaking showed up, even though I said I was struggling, it's time to find some people and find out who those people might be, I would say.
And that takes age. I feel
It
like
takes time.
It takes so much time.
It's time and effort and energy. But
and there's different seasons for different people, and
it kind of is like when like people get married and they're like, oh honey, make sure that you know how to make money, because if something doesn't work out with that man, blah blah blah. It's
Don't
the same thing with your
man.
It's the same thing with your friends. You need to be trying to cultivate good relationships, because there is gonna come a day where you need those girls. You need those people. I guess they could be men also, but like, I guess they could be. But you're gonna need some people at some point. So work on fostering relationships with the people who are showing you that they are there for you and ready to be that kind of friend.
Also, I feel like if you are in a position where you're not happy with someone, don't be afraid. There will be people in your life, even if they're related to you, close to you, friends, that will say like, well, what are you going to do without them? Or they're going to, give you the like, well, this, you've already have XYZ together. You never have too much with someone to where you can't leave that and move on. You can always restart. Katerina said it before, I'm never afraid to burn the house down and start from scratch.
It.
Yep. My dad said it in a different way, something about grass and something, but
the
lawn. But you are never too far in. You never have too many kids. You never have too many assets to where you cannot restart if you were in a position where you're not happy. And it might suck. You might lose family over it. You might lose employees over it. You might lose friends over it. But if you're truly not happy with that person, go for it and just restart, because you don't know who's on the other side, friends, employees, family, whatever it is, that's going to be even greater than what situation you're in now.
No, that's a great point, and we'll have to do a whole nother podcast when we come back
put
about
that to the notes.
Please write that in the notes.
Nobody looks back at their
Restarting.
life if they've blown it up or burn it to the ground and say, oh, I really regretted that I did that.
I don't think so.
Like,
There's people, yes.
I think people all
who
the time
have
are like, I
built
wish
things,
I had burnt it
yeah,
down.
in their 80s. Yeah, you do not want to, don't ever stay
look back
somewhere
at
just
that and
thinking like,
regret it.
yeah, what if, like, oh, well, what will I do without it? You will figure it out, and you will be so much stronger as a person too. How much being by yourself have you learned that you didn't,
oh my goodness.
Even though you always took care of so much, there's definitely things that you've taken care of that you probably didn't when you were with someone. You know what I mean?
Yeah, let me tell you this. Is it hard to be on your own sometimes? Yes. Is it hard to be a single mother? Obviously. Is it hard to do things by yourself?
Obviously I have 2 employees.
Obviously.
That's why we're all here.
Hiring people because it's so freaking hard. Can it be hard to be on your own? Absolutely. Can it be lonely and scary?
Yeah.
Whatever. Yes.
You grow though.
But you grow as a person. And
let
me tell you.
learn what you don't need from someone else, because you're so much better at yourself anyway.
And let me tell you what's so much harder than doing things by yourself is doing things where you thought you would have a partner and then they didn't show up.
Mm-hmm.
That is much harder.
Because
then you feel like shit about it. Yeah.
Nobody else does.
Mm-hmm.
And you're in a bad mood while you're doing it. So at
now
least
you're doing just
if you're
as
the
much,
only one you're counting on,
people
well
think
then
that you have help when you have a
well now you're
partner
doing
or-
just as much work, but you're resentful and angry about
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah.
I would say I've said this 1,000 times here, and they're going to be like, yeah, stop saying that. But I would say that it's very important to recognize that if you're in a relationship, the only reason to stay there is because you want to be there, and it's not sucking the life out of you.
Yeah.
If it's good for you. Now, I'm not saying there can't be hard seasons,
Or that
obviously.
you can't work through things, but if you've tried it all, you've worked through it,
and
you've
it's
gone
just
to therapy,
sucking the life out of
Yeah.
you, and that other
your kids will be okay if you move on. Your kids will be happier if
the
you
tidbit
guys
from my
each do your own
therapist
thing.
would be, if the other person has not shown with their actions that they are willing to put in effort and come up with solutions, okay, then they're out of the picture. They're not helping, okay? So if it's sucking the life out of you and it's not good for you and they're not doing the work, there is no reason to be there, period. And that does not mean I am judging you if you choose to stay anyway. Love you. I know that it's really, really hard. What I am saying,
We know you're stronger than that. You'll leave.
what I am saying is that I really believe, and I'm going to continue to believe, that the only good reason to stay in a relationship is because you want to be there.
Yeah.
And things like shared assets or history or it's
Family.
complicated or that other person's feelings or whatever it is does not constitute a reason to stay somewhere that you don't want to be, okay?
You literally live once.
Yeah, in 10 years.
That
when
will
you're
mean
looking
something
back,
to us. It will mean something to us one day, so let's make it mean something now.
Okay. We're gonna have to do another podcast. I feel
I know.
like
I mean,
you have one more
it's
comment.
like-
We've got like 5
Well,
more minutes.
I was just wanting you to point on the TikTok.
Oh my gosh. Okay,
That,
yeah.
what is the?
I'm
word?
gonna order that book, Cathexis. I'm gonna
Yes,
order that
but we
book
can
and then
go
I'm gonna
on-
come back. So I'm gonna touch on this and
Yeah.
then we're gonna do
That's
a
a
whole.
good. That's a good.
I'm
ending.
like,
I'm not gonna say
We're like
anything on it.
dating, or we're talking about dating, and I'm like, that right there needs to be
That is
spoken
yes, it's very true.
to our listeners.
Oh my gosh, this blew my mind.
Yeah, that
Good
was,
old
And if you
TikTok.
learned it on TikTok, it's real.
It is real if it came off TikTok. But
Right.
I am gonna order the book that she was talking about. But this woman who I've like seen some of her stuff and she's pretty solid. But like Salem's very annoyed at eating her
we're getting
playmat.
close to the end here.
We are. So
so good.
there are 3 elements that get confused in relationships, especially romantic relationships. The element of care, which is like physically meeting somebody's need. And then the element of love and cathexis. So people love to say, I love you. And what they really mean is they feel cathexis, which is enjoying the feeling they get about your presence. So me enjoying you being in my life and the feeling I get from you being here, that's actually not love, that's cathexis. That's what that feeling
And you
is.
can have cathexis for anyone and everyone.
Yes, you can have cathexis for anybody. Whereas love is pouring into and nurturing another person and enabling their spiritual and emotional growth. Which is why someone might say, I love you. And you're like, that's weird because I feel none of it. And it's like it has nothing to do with me because they're saying I love you. But what they really mean is
It doesn't
I
have
feel it has nothing to do with you. It's cathexis. I enjoy the feeling I have about you being here. But it's not, I'm not loving you. Love is a verb and love is a choice.
It's almost like unintentionally. It's not. I hate to say the word selfish, but it's
It is
more
selfish.
of a yeah. It's
I like the way you make me feel.
the feeling,
Which is
the
good.
feeling.
You should feel good about a person.
Right.
And you might enjoy somebody else's cathexis. Like, I like the effect that I'm having on you. But that doesn't mean that that person is loving you.
Yeah.
And that is a big difference. So I would encourage anybody to look that up. We are definitely going to talk about that on another podcast.
Yeah.
And I'm going to...
That should be our opener to the next one about that.
well, I got to hurry up and read that book then, I guess.
Yeah, you have a
But yeah, that was a
maybe do Audible on that one.
I might have to listen to it, yeah. But that's a great point. And maybe think about that because that blew my mind. I was like, oh my gosh, that has happened so many times.
Yeah.
But okay.
Yeah, and it's hard because you're kind of like, what wasn't right about that, or why did that not work?
Right,
Because
and
like,
this person like
in all the other scenarios, it did, but
yeah,
it was.
or these people keep saying I love you, and then I'm like, but where is it?
Yeah.
Why don't I feel it? You know why? Because what they're actually experiencing is cathexis, and it has nothing to do with me. It's about.
So you're not broken.
This isn't. You're not crazy, okay? All right. That was fun.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Good job, ladies.
that was a
That was
long
a
one.
tough one.
The whole day.
I can't.
I'm just kidding.
I can't say that I condone this new behavior
Yeah, Kat,
of
how do you
putting me
feel?
on
Are
the
you
spot.
Oh, I thought you meant the wine, and I was like, really? That was our only time?
No, the wine I can condone.
Oh,
No, don't.
We'll
The
see-
wine was
we'll see y'all
needed.
next
The
time.
wine I always condone. The putting me on the spot I condone less. Okay.
And Salem has opinions, so
She is
goodbye.
right. She's like, and we're done.
She's like,
That'll be enough of that.
So thank you, anyone who's listening. You're wonderful. Let us know your thoughts and maybe what you'd like to hear us talk about more there because we touched on a lot of stuff. The wine helped with that. We have some ideas for the next podcast, I think. Thanks
We're
for
just all
being...
gonna relate to each other.
Yeah, it's gonna
like-
keep going. So thank you for being a part of this community. We appreciate you.